Tonight, we're patrolling the middle of the field with linebackers. Hey guys, I'm your host, Joshua Klein of the Draft Beard podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Tonight, we're going to be talking about my top 7 linebackers for the 2025 NFL Draft. But before we get there, if you could do me a favor, if you could like, subscribe, and share the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for those who have liked, subscribed, and shared already. So if you guys could do that for me, that helps get this content in front of those who are most interested, especially those who love the NFL and the NFL Draft. So again, if you guys would like, subscribe, and share, I would greatly appreciate it. So we're going to be talking about linebackers tonight. And, it's a position that is not as valued as it once was in the NFL. When I was growing up, that was like one of the, premier tough guy positions out there. You wore the big pads and the neck guard. I was a huge fan of Chris Spielman growing up. Then you had your Lawrence Taylors and those type of guys. And the NFL has moved away from the linebacker being such an important position in most NFL defenses as we've moved to more of a pass-heavy offensive league. But I still love them. It's still a fun position to look at. And it takes really smart, high IQ players to play the position, especially if you're going to wear that green dot and play in the middle. So I have 7 linebackers that I felt were worthy of day 1 or day 2 grades. So that's first, second, and third round. So I had 7 of those in this year's draft. So it's not a strong class. I do have a couple guys who I have rated in the first round on my big board at linebacker. So actually one guy who I graded as a first round linebacker in this year's draft. So 7 overall. We'll hit up some guys who you might want to know or pay attention to those names that you might hear called maybe on day 2, but more likely on day 3. So we'll get started with my number 7 linebacker, and that is Barrett Carter, the linebacker out of Clemson. 6 foot, 232 pounds. And with the 78 and 5/8 inch wingspan, he ran a 4.63 40 at his pro day. So it's a solid 40-yard dash there. He's a guy I like. He's more of a coverage linebacker. He uses that speed to cover sideline to sideline. He chases down ball carriers very well, closes in on passes well. Really good fluid hips. As I just stated, he's a coverage linebacker, so he's going to provide you some value in today's game. He has excellent zone coverage instincts. He maintains good depth, reads the quarterback's eyes. He likes to tighten. He does a good job at tightening throwing windows when he's covering receivers and uses his speed well. He's an effective blitzer, which is if you want to use him on the outside, send him in on a blitz. He does very good at showing natural timing and burst, utilizes his speed very well. He pursues well on the run, uses angles very well. So he gets to those running backs who are, trying to bust it to the outside. He does very well at that. I think he does well at reading screens and dissecting those plays very well. He plays with physicality against tight ends. He's strong enough at the point of attack. He sets the edge pretty decently against tight ends. He's very active hands and pops really well when he disrupts blocks. And he was a team captain. He's a Butkus Award finalist. So again, there's not going to be very many guys in the draft or linebackers overall who are going to be really good coverage linebackers. And I see him as well. He can play linebacker, so I don't see him as a safety, but he definitely can play linebacker at the NFL level. He tackles well enough. His run defense is okay. He tends to lose his ground against those bigger offensive linemen, gets swallowed up in blocks. So he has trouble shedding blocks, which is why he isn't as great at run defense. He can tend to be over aggressive in his coverage, inconsistent in his pad level. Sometimes he tackles too high, fails to drive using his lower body. He has a pretty high missed tackle rate, around 10 to 15%. So that allows extra yards after contact when he is engaging with running backs or receivers in the ball carriers. He's prone to be misled with the play action, utilizing his eyes deceive him a little bit too much, gets confused by pre-snap motion, misdirect. I think he can play as a Will or a Sam, use him as a blitzing linebacker. Don't see him as a guy who's going to be a middle linebacker at all. But if he could, learn to be a better tackler, that would really improve his floor as an NFL draft prospect. I think he's really going to be a pass coverage linebacker. I don't know if I see him out there as a 3-down linebacker. I kind of had a comp for him as maybe a Malik Jefferson, who had comparable build, size, versatility. Both were athletic, thrive in coverage. So I have him as a day 2 third-round linebacker out there. I like him. He just got some weaknesses to his game that doesn't allow him to be a good all-around linebacker. So he was my number 7. And my number 6 linebacker in this year's draft class is Danny Stutzman. He is the linebacker out of the University of Oklahoma. And Danny is a little bit different than Barrett Carter. They are the polar opposite of each other. Barrett Carter out of Clemson, coverage. Danny Stutzman, he is 6'3", is 230-some pounds. He is a stout run defender, opposite of Barrett Carter. He has exceptional play recognition. He keys in diagnosing that roast run plays. He shoots the gaps very well, stacks blocks, makes tackles near the line of scrimmage. He's a tackling machine. So he is a relentless tackler, thinking 376 career tackles. Good wrap-up ability. He's a thumper. He is going to hit you. He's going to pound you. He did show some inconsistency with his pad level, but he's a physical downhill attacker. He is going to come at you against the run. He fills gaps really well, plays with an absolute relentless motor, and is effective at blitzing. He has a quick first step. He has a good rip move, so he can be used as a blitzer. You're a really good run defender, high energy player, and he is not going to be a guy that you're going to really want to leave him out there in coverage much. He has limited awareness and discipline in zone coverage. He plays a little bit too shallow. He creates big windows on dig routes. He struggles to track tight ends. He's not very athletic at all, but he's just a tackling machine at 6'3", 233 pounds. He ran a 4.52, which that's not a burner for the linebacker position, but that's not terrible. He doesn't do a good job at shedding blocks. He's not as strong as you would like him to be. So he is a guy that you're going to see out there first, and definitely running downs. You're not going to keep him out there on passing downs. Had some injuries in 21 and 23. Definitely going to be a guy who you're going to want to leave in zone. If you're going to do any coverage, it's going to be zone. He's going to be a middle linebacker, and he's going to rack up the tackles, and he is going to pound you. He reminds me a little bit more of an old style linebacker from back in the day that you just beat the crap out of the runner. Whoever's got that ball, he's going to pop them. They're going to feel that they got tackled by Danny Stutzman. So I like Danny. I have a 3rd-round grade on him. Compared him to kind of the high effort that you see from Brian Cashman of the Houston Texans. But 3rd-round grade, love watching him play. He's definitely going to be a fun player if you have him on your team. Definitely a really good run-stuffing defender, Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. Number 5 on my list is we have Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss. Chris Paul Jr. is 6'1", 222 pounds, fourth year junior. He ran a 4.63, so Stutzman, the guy ahead of him, a little bit better speed than Chris Paul. But Chris Paul is more athletic than Danny. Chris Paul is very instinctive. He's aggressive. He has elite play recognition. He pursues his angles well. He's really good at diagnosing run plays. The difference is here, he also utilizes a natural feel in zone coverage. He does a good job at maintaining depth. He has a really good awareness to track those tight ends. He's a better tackler than, say, the other coverage guy that we had below him in Barrett Carter. He's really a secure wrap-up tackler. He doesn't miss very many tackles. He gets downhill really fast against the run. He fills the gaps. He can blitz. He's played special teams. He's been a proven contributor, over 500 snaps on special teams. He has been a captain at Ole Miss. Now the problem is he's a little shorter, 29 and 7/8 inch arms. I think it was later measured at 30 and 3/4 at his pro day. So we all know there's some inconsistencies between what they were measuring at different events this year. He tends to get engulfed by the bigger offensive linemen. He's not super strong, doesn't have the same power as maybe Danny Stunsman did. So his lower body strength, upper body strength aren't what you'd like to see. Could use to be a little better at disengaging in his blocks. Not as athletic, so he does have the long speed, not very good range, doesn't move side to side very well. So he's not as consistent at run defense at all as Danny Stunsman, and he's not as but he's a better coverage guy, is really what I want to say. So he's kind of like a little bit of Barrett Carter in the ability and a little bit of Danny Stunsman in ability, kind of put him together. And so I think he could be a 3-down linebacker in the NFL. I mean, there's not very many of those in today's day and age as we move to nickel and dime so much. But I really liked him a lot. He can play as a will linebacker. I think he can be a starter in the NFL. I don't see him as having a high ceiling as a Pro Bowl potential linebacker. I had a 3rd-round grade on him, but he's an instinctive, aggressive linebacker with good rushing ability. He just isn't very strong. Does have some coverage discipline issues, but I liked watching the film on him. I think he can develop into a pretty decent starting linebacker in the NFL. I compared him to Azeez Al-Shaair of the Houston Texans in his play style, not necessarily his attitude, but 3rd-round grade on Chris Paul Jr., 5th rated linebacker in my class. That brings me to the next guy on my list, and that is South Carolina's Demetrius Knight Jr., 6'2", 235 pounds, 25 years old. So he's a little older. He only played 1 year as a starter at South Carolina, so that was a little concerning. He ran a 4.5 840 at the combine, and he is a oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. It happens. Good run defense. That's what I was trying to get to. So he has good run defense instincts. He's an elite play, has elite play recognition, plays with some of that downhill aggression that you see from Stuntsman. He diagnoses plays well, shoots the gaps well. He has exceptional range. He covers his ground really quickly. That allows him to make plays from sideline to sideline. So he's a little more athletic than Chris Paul. He has the prototypical body size for a Mike linebacker, right? He extends well, shed blocks well. He has the ability to blitz, shows a natural timing and acceleration as a blitzer. He used that first step really well. He has some pop to him when he tackles, right? He's a booming tackler, delivers some violent hits. Maybe not as crazy as what you see from Stuntsman or an old school linebacker, but he wraps up really well. Super smart kid, right? He was a team captain at South Carolina. He played a high school quarterback, so that athleticism shows on tape. Played a lot of special teams. The problem he has is he's really tight in his hips. It limits his lateral movement. Change of direction isn't really good. Doesn't move sideline to sideline very well. So shifty backs, those agile receivers, tight ends and man coverage are going to give him some limitations. He has some poor eye discipline and zone coverage, right? The quarterbacks are very able to manipulate him with play action with his eyes. So he uses gaps for underneath throws that you'll see. He kind of tends to be a little bit too over patient in reading blocks. So that allows the offensive lineman to engage him a little bit, and he doesn't have a good ability to shed those blocks. Again, he's a little older of a prospect, but I liked his game. He I think has the ability to again be a good starter at the NFL level. Good tackler. I think he's just a guy that when you watch him, you like him. He doesn't like overly shine on tape. I had him compared to Jermaine Pratt of the Bengals in terms of athleticism and role. He's going to fit in a 4-3 pressure-oriented Mike linebacker. I like him a lot. The more I watched him, I was really liked him at first, and then it kind of got, he has a good a good floor. I don't still see a high ceiling from him, but he's a fun player to watch. Just he was a late bloomer, a little older of a prospect, and I did have a third round grade on Demetrius Knight Jr. out of the University of South Carolina. And that takes us to our top 3 linebackers. But before we get there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Again, I'd really appreciate it if you did. That helps spread the word about the podcast and people are interested in the NFL draft. And we're going to hit a couple guys that didn't make my top 7 or weren't graded in the first 3 rounds of the draft, but names that you should know that you might see drafted on day 3 in the NFL draft and maybe a little bit earlier, because you got to remember grades are all over the place in the 2025 NFL draft. But there's a couple guys I want you to be aware of. I'll give you a couple names. Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker out of the University of Oregon, 6'1", 228. He's 23 years old. He ran a 4.63 40. Decent size, play speed. It's a good punch. He started 43 games as a linebacker at the University of Oregon. Then I've got Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State, 6 foot, 221 pounds. He ran a 4.59 at his pro day. He had some injury concerns, right? He is really athletic, aggressive tackler. I really like this guy. If I'm going to take a flyer on a linebacker on day 3 that can maybe develop into a really good starting NFL linebacker and be able to maybe used all over the field, because he can run he has good sideline to sideline range and is a good tackler. And that's Nick Martin. So he's a guy who's one of my pound the table day 3 guys at linebacker. And then you got the tackling machine, Sean Dolak out of the University of Buffalo from the MAC conference. This guy is just, man, he is so much fun to watch, right? He is not overly fast. He's 6 foot, 221, right? So he plays with so much energy, and he really has good read and react skills, drive to the football, an absolute monster tackling machine. So he's a fun guy. If you get some chance over the next few weeks before the NFL draft, you want to check him out. I really like him a lot. So I got a couple guys there. That's Jeffrey Bassa, Nick Martin, and Sean Dolak. And then another guy I want to just briefly mention who kind of just missed my top 7 there is Samuel Mondin Jr. out of the University of Georgia. Some guys, I see him as another 3rd round graded guy. I had him just outside of that as a 4th round graded guy. But those are 4 guys that I would pay attention to, should hear their name called in the NFL draft, that I think you want to call them sleepers. You want to call them guys who just missed out on my top 7. Then I would go ahead and be familiar with their names. Getting back to the top 3 of my linebacker rankings, we got number 3 in this class, and that is Carson Schweshinger, the linebacker out of UCLA. He is a fun player to watch. He is really smart player. He has elite play recognition, really good athleticism. Even though his 40 time wasn't as what you'd seen from some of the other linebackers, he just knows how to process plays really fast. He diagnoses them so quickly. He's just fun to watch on tape. He's got really fluid hips. He can cover sideline to sideline. He closes on passes. He's able to handle running with running backs. He is a very sound tackler. I think he had a very low missed tackle rate of 8.4%. He squares up well. He's played a lot on special teams, so that's going to provide value to NFL teams. He plays with just such a high motor. He does not take plays off. He is just an absolute dog on defense. You see him all over the field, and he's just a tone setter on anybody's defense. And he just doesn't make mental mistakes. That's the one thing I really, really like about him, is you're not going to see him as a guy who is going to have problems with MAs, missed assignments. He's so focused, right? He is going to make a really good starting middle linebacker at the NFL level. Now, he doesn't have the elite run defenses that you see from a Stuntsman, and he doesn't have elite coverage defense that you see from a Barrett Carter, right? But he is probably one of the best all-around linebackers in the draft. He's experienced. He struggles to disengage from blocks, hold the point of attack. can be fooled on fakes. He gets a little bit in there with the eye candy out there, but overall, he's still pretty smart. Slow to get to where he needs to be in his areas of zone coverage. Tends to be a little bit grabby. It's probably maybe a little bit due to not being as athletic as other linebackers out there. So if he gets beat, tends to be a little bit grabby. But he's going to be a really good Mike linebacker. I think you could play him at the will as well in a 4-3 front. But like him a lot. Schlesinger's skill set makes him kind of maybe a perfect fit for maybe the Raiders, Bills style team out there. He saw him as a similar size to Drew Tranquill, the Kansas City Chiefs. Similar athleticism, both instinctive linebackers. But Schlesinger is a really fun watch, and whoever drafts him, you're gonna get some smiles on your face when you watch him fly around the field like a heat-seeking missile. So good player. I had him a second-round grade. He's one of those guys that if another linebacker were to slip into the first round, I would not be shocked if he did. I don't anticipate that happening, but I could see that as a potential. I could see a lot of NFL teams are going to value the fact that he's so smart and he doesn't take plays off. So, like Carson Schlesinger a lot. That brings me to my number 2 linebacker. This one's going to be a little controversial because is he a linebacker or is he an edge rusher? I kept him in my linebacker class. Honestly, probably should have moved him to my edge rusher class, but there's just so many edge rushers out there that I didn't want him to get lost in, the 15, 20 or so, or how many edge rushers I'm going to get to. But there's just so many edge rushers in this class. And I think Jalen Walker is an enigma, right? You have people out there who have him in the top 5 I've seen overall players in this draft class. You have others like myself who see him more as a early second round graded player. And the biggest issue with Jalen Walker is, where is he going to succeed at the NFL level? Is he exceptional at any one thing where that's where you're going to leave him and let him play? Now, Jalen is 6'1", 243 pounds. So he doesn't have the ideal size and length that you like to see out of an edge rusher. But the problem is he's also not the ideal size or an ability for a linebacker either. So I see it, like if you want to use him as an edge rusher, I get it, right? Because he has exceptional speed, right? He's 6'2", 245 pounds. He's an athlete. He runs 4.50. He can move around sideline to sideline. He can chase down ball carriers. You see that on film, right? He closes on passes quickly. But is he going to be an off-ball linebacker? Are you going to use him as a 3-4 and blitz him? Are you going to use him on the edge in a 4-3? So that's my concern with him is how do you use him? And I've said this a few times in some of my rankings. I've gotten burned so many times on players who I absolutely loved the athleticism and thought that they were going to be, really great players in the NFL. And I use Isaiah Simmons as a prime example. As where I've been burned. So I'm a lot more cautious. I like players who I can see that they're going to fit in a certain area. That's going to be their defined role in terms of being on the edge or a linebacker. I think the only other area where you can succeed at maybe having a Swiss Army knife is maybe more in the secondary, right? Where you're playing maybe a little bit of a box safety, maybe you're playing a little bit of nickel, a little bit of the outside, but there's still corners, right? So it's just, I struggle with where Jalen Walker is going to play at the NFL level. I see that the high level all-pro potential because he does offer that versatility. He offers great pass rush upside, that explosive first step. He has a natural bend to him, and he has so much speed coming around the edge. He converts speed to power really quickly. He's got some club moves, spin moves. He had 6.5 sacks last year. He's physical and quick to diagnose plays. He has heavy hands. He's able to stack, pull, and he pursues ball carriers sideline to sideline very well, uses his length well. Now, he has the potential to play in coverage, but he just hasn't shown that in college. I don't think he has shown the ability to be a guy who can just go out, put him on as an outside linebacker, maybe as a Sam linebacker, and use him in coverage, right? He's raw. Though he does have good pass rush ability, he still needs some pass rush refinement. He needs some more tools in the tool shed. He doesn't have great strength for run defense, right? So is he a guy who you're going to use as a defensive end to set the edge? I don't think that's going to be his style. I think he's going to be more of a pass rushing defensive end. So he has great athleticism. I see it. It's just I'm more on the wait and see approach, kind of temper my expectations with Jalen Walker, which is why I don't have a first round grade on him. So he's one of these enigmas that you see in this year's draft class, top 5 to second round. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go in the top 10, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him fall into day 2 of the NFL draft. So he's going to be suited for a defensive scheme that will use, multiple fronts, 3-4, 4-3, apply a lot of pressure, utilize his ability to rush the passer. That's going to be valuable, giving him that versatility. I mean, think about it. He'd be a perfect Baltimore Raven. He reminds me a little bit of an Anthony Barr, similar size, speed, versatility, kind of hybrid defenders. So Jalen definitely has Pro Bowl potential. I see it. It's there, but it's just not something I want to take a risk on and drop a pick in the top 10 on Jalen Walker. And a lot of NFL teams just like to do that. They like to go for the high risk, high reward. I'm the opposite. I'd rather, play a little bit safer on guys who have higher floors, maybe will tend to turn out or defined roles you can see at the NFL level. So that's why I had him as my number 2 linebacker, even though I see him more as an edge rushing player out there, but I don't see him as a true edge rusher either. So my number 1 linebacker is one of my favorite players in this class, and that's Jihad Campbell. I have a first round grade on him. He is an elite athlete playing linebackers, and he has great size at 6'3", 235 pounds. He ran a 4.52 at the combine. He can cover sideline to sideline. You can see him chase down those ball carriers. He closes on pass as well. So you're going to see that with Jihad, he can cover a little bit. He has a really good run defense impact, right? He's physical, instinctive inside the tackle box. He reads plays very well. He's in position. But yet at the same time, he has the ability to drop in zone. He has really efficient footwork. He has really good eye discipline. He's able to locate. He's able to understand and anticipate kind of where the quarterback is going, keeps those windows tight in zone coverage. But at the same time, he's also a dangerous blitzer, right? You can use him as an edge rusher. So he offers versatility in a way that a lot of other players in this draft do not have. And he's a great tackler. He is such a good tackler at a 5.9% missed tackle rate. That was 10th best last year in 2004 among linebackers. He is violent. He extends his arms really well. I think he can play all 3 linebacker spots, and in a pinch, if you need to put him and set him up on the edge, maybe if you wanted to put his hand in the dirt, I think he can do that. Now, he lacks elite play strength. Does he hold the edge as well as I'd like to see on the run? Definitely could use some improvement there because he does tend to get overpowered by stronger guys. And it's his pad level that I see kinds of an issue. He tends to tackle a little high. He lets those offensive linemen or other players get up underneath his pads. It kind of allows running backs, receivers, that ball carrier to get a few extra yards after contact. He tends to not hold the edge against mobile quarterbacks. He can kind of abandon his zone where he needs to be to setting the edge. And he can blitz. We did hit that, but he doesn't have great pass rush moves yet. He needs some development there, but he has the potential to be a pass rusher. So he can be utilized in a lot of ways. He's versatile in the sense that he's going to play linebacker, and he can play in all 3 linebacker positions. Did have maybe some injury issue. There was a report out there that he had a torn labrum after the combine. So that's not good going into the draft, is having to have surgery on his torn labrum. But if you are a team that runs an aggressive 4-3 heavy blitzing defense, then Jihad Campbell is definitely going to be the guy for you. I compared him to a JOK from Cleveland, an athletic linebacker who I liked a lot a couple years ago when he came out, or an Alex Highsmith from Pittsburgh, who's a good blitzer and athletic as well. So Jihad Campbell was my only true first-round graded linebacker, a guy I really like. He has all-pro potential at the linebacker position. I do expect him to go in the first round. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see him go in the top 15, maybe 12 to Dallas. I think if he makes it to 19, I think that's a, run the card in type of pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Jihad Campbell is one of my favorite players in the class, and he's my number one linebacker. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and share for me. I would really appreciate it. And we'll be looking forward to the next episode of the Draft Beard podcast, where we hit up another position group as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft.
The Draft Beard podcast.